Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And we got a lot to talk about this week. Another big week for the market. Big vintage spike in the form of Bazaar of Baghdad. We'll discuss that towards the end of the video. Also, the modern market heating up thanks to a couple exciting decks right now. The As Foretold Living End deck being one of them, the Temur Breach deck being another. We'll go into those details in a few moments. But just real fast before we get started, I want to say thank you to all the well-wishers out there. If you missed yesterday's video, I got hit with the flu. Feeling a lot better today. We're going to power through this one, but thank you for the nice comments. And also, too, just a quick reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to support us. Our Patreon page is down there, as well as some product links for Amazon and Flipside Gaming. Those are ways to support the channel. So that's always appreciated. With that being said, let's get into it. And we're going to start off with Standard, as we always do. The top 5 Standard cards that have lost value this week. And as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot happening in the world of Standard. Everyone's waiting for Rivals of Ixalan at this point, and rightfully so. The meta's about to change. No one wants to buy into a deck at this point. So you're going to see very, very conservative movement on the upside. And the cards that are going down are going to be more your high-priced cards, even if they are successful cards. Number 5, Walking Ballista, down 64 cents to $12.73. This is a great example of a card that, yes, has been printed probably into oblivion. Granted, it's a new Magic card, it's a rare. But the card has a lot of places where it does see play. Not just Standard, it's been great in Standard, but even in Vintage, it shows up in Shops decks, in Legacy, Eldrazi Stompy. In Modern, you can find it in Tron decks. So this is a card that has made a foothold for itself in a number of different formats, which is awesome. So keep an eye on this one. I'd wait for it to get a little bit cheaper, maybe even wait for it to rotate as Standard when that day comes. But if for some reason you don't have copies of this card, this is one you'll want to probably have a play set of for the future. Number 4, Hostage Taker, down 75 cents to $7.01. Now, this card was extremely hot not all that long ago, and the card's still great, it's still seeing play, and it will probably see play as long as it's Standard legal, quite honestly. But it is seeing less play than it was once seeing. Still great in the Sultai Energy builds. Not a slam dunk 4 of, though, in those decks like maybe people were trying to do initially with this card, because they started to discover that this card isn't always great. It depends on the board state. It's awesome some of the time, but if you don't have enough mana to quickly take advantage of whatever it is you exile, then it becomes an expensive tempo play, which isn't good enough sometimes. So, yeah, because of that, maybe, okay, it's not a 4 of, but it's still a really good card, and it is dropping, though. It is a rare, and Ixalan has really saturated the market at this point. Number 3, Verasco Relic Seeker, down 82 cents to $14.99. This is another Ixalan card, but this one's a mythic, but still it is also suffering from market saturation a little bit. And it is a card that sees a lot of play, though. Great in a lot of the energy decks. This was seeing play in the Abzan token decks as well. And they are still around, especially at Friday Night Magics. But when it comes to competitive Magic, they've kind of fallen off a little bit now that the meta is starting to wrap up. So keep that in mind. Because of that, she's not getting as much attention as she once was. But still, really awesome in energy decks. I don't see her going away or anything when Rivals comes out. Number 2, Gideon of the Trials, down 95 cents to $10.47. So Gideon was not on our list last week for the first time in a while. He's back again this week and continues to drop. And the story behind this card is there was a lot of high expectations behind this when Ixalan was coming out with the new Planeswalker rule. Unfortunately, that didn't really pan out for this card, but the card still found a foothold in modern control decks as well as a number of Standard builds. So, does it see play? Sure. Maybe not in the abundance of some of the other cards we've seen on the list today, but it does have at least a light foothold, and I do think a fair price for this card probably is closer to the $8 to $10 mark, where it's kind of starting to get to anyway. Number 1, the Scarab God, and this has been number 1 for about 4 weeks now in a row, I think. Down $1.26 this week to $34.99. Still pretty expensive. Card sees play like everywhere. Like pretty much everywhere you look, right? The energy decks, Grixis control decks, and it's an awesome commander card too. I think that's worth noting. So with this particular card, it is going to continue to go down because the price point is very high considering the amount of supply that's out there. Even though the demand has been very high, as players start to get their cards so that they can build their decks, then they don't need to acquire more copies. And then all of a sudden things stabilize and you realize there's still a lot more copies out there on the marketplace. Sellers can't move them, prices start to decline. That's what you're seeing here. That's what's been happening over the course of the last month or so. Now, my assumption is as more cards get added to the meta, this card won't be quite as dominant. I mean, it's very, very dominant right now. But as more cards enter the environment and the environment changes, this card will always be a part of it, I have no doubt. But it's not going to be as significant as it was this past meta. So you combine that with the fact that the supply is pretty high, this will continue to drop. All right, let's move on to the top 5 standard cards that have gained value this week. And so you're going to see some very, very conservative gains here, especially the first 4 cards. So let's take a look. Number 5, Field of Ruin, of 4 cents to 84 cents. Now, this is an Ixalan uncommon. So how is this even managing to go up 4 cents? Well, actually, this card is seeing some modern play in control builds. This is showing up like in Azorius control decks as a 4 of sometimes, believe it or not. So yeah, there is some interest in this card. This has seen some standard play in control decks as well, sometimes like a 1 of or on the sideboard. But really in Modern, it's been kind of interesting where it has better targets. Number 4, Blossoming Defense. This is another uncommon of 4 cents to $1.54. Another card that also has had an impact on Modern. As you can imagine, it's really good in the Infect deck. Beyond that, it's very good in Standard too. Sultai Energy decks, Sultai Pummeler decks will run this. Number 3, Search for Iskanta, up 4 cents to $10.90. Now, this is a card that has solidified itself, I think, as maybe the best transform card out of Ixalan. Fantastic for control builds. We've seen it in control builds and Standard as well as Modern at this point. And I do think over the course of the next few months, it will really start to solidify itself as a staple in Modern, at least in some builds. Number 2, we have ourselves a Planeswalker deck, Planeswalker with Gideon Marshall Paragon, of 5 cents to $4.22. So this is another one of those cards that a lot of people tried to brew with. I mean, they're still trying to brew with. They're still trying to make that Gideon Tribal idea work. Fortunately, it just hasn't quite gotten there in Modern or Standard. But this card is still interesting for casual play, especially Commander. I've seen some mono-white Commander decks play this and actually have some success with it. So it's not a bad card, considering $4.22 versus the price of the actual Planeswalker deck. Maybe it's not a bad pickup. And number 1, all right, this is more of a Modern card this week, but as Foretold, of $3.50 to $7.71. So yes, it's not the Standard market driving this, it's Modern because of that As Foretold Living End deck. The deck's put up some good results recently, and a lot of streamers have been playing it, which has brought some attention to it. Now, the thing is, I always say there's a hot deck of the month. Well, this is definitely our hot deck of the month in Modern for December. And this deck, we'll see what it does after December. I mean, some of these hot decks of the month peter out. Some go on to become a part of the environment. So I guess we'll wait and see on this one. But so far, this deck looks pretty sweet. All right, let's move on to Modern with that segue. With the top 5 Modern cards that have lost value this week. As you can imagine, at least some of the cards you're going to see here are cards that were reprinted in Iconic Masters. Now, we're not going to talk about Iconic Masters in this video, or Unstable for that matter in this video, because we did a special video on those yesterday. I'll link it at the end of this one if you missed it. But let's get into today's Modern cards. With number 5, it's Cavern of Souls from Avacyn Restored, down $1.73 to $57.98. So this card has been going up pretty consistently recently. Snaps back a little bit this week, maybe due for a snapback. And this is a key part of the Humans deck, which of course was the hot deck of the month for November. That one is still doing pretty well, still putting up some good results, so we'll see where it goes. But it's not only Humans. This card, of course, is in a ton of competitive decks in a lot of different formats. Number 4, Horizon Canopy from Future Sight, down $1.78 to $62.15. So, of course, this was reprinted in Iconic Masters as a rare. But the thing to remember with this version is there's going to be a lot of players that will want this copy. And because of that, this will still go down in price some more. But it's not going to go down really low. It's like not going to catch up with the Iconic Masters version or anything like that for a couple of reasons. One, it's a unique looking card. It's got the unique border. It's got unique art. But secondly is the availability. The Future Sight print run was relatively small compared to most modern era Magic sets, which means this one's a little bit harder to find, a little more coveted. So this will maintain value. Now, if you just want a copy to play with right now, that Iconic Masters version, you can get $30 off. So for $32 or so, you can get the same card. Of course, it'll be the newer version. Number 3, Glimpse the Unthinkable, down $1.91 to $20. This is the Ravnica version, and this was also reprinted in Iconic Masters at Rare, this time with the same art. So this card needed a reprint desperately. This is a card that sees play in Modern in the Esper Mill deck, which can put up some good results from time to time. Never underestimate that deck. Also, beyond that, fantastic casual card for players that like alternate win conditions or mill, and there's a lot of players that enjoy that type of gameplay. So this card finally gets the reprint, and noticeably it's been losing value, which is a good thing. A lot more players can get their hands on this card. If you want the new version, you can actually get it for about half this price at about $8-9. Number 2, Aether Vial from Modern Masters, down $2.47 to $37.41. And yep, you guessed it, third verse, same as the first, another card that was reprinted at Rare in Iconic Masters. Now this one going down actually quite a bit this week, but another card that managed to stay stable for a while thanks to the Humans deck. Among others. I mean, definitely sees playing a lot of other huge decks, but recently the price points have been driven by the Humans deck. Now, Aether Vial, though, an interesting thing to point out, if you want to buy the newer version of the card, it's only going to be about $5 less. So it really goes to show you just how much people were buying into that Human Tribal deck in November. Number 1, Crucible of Worlds from 5th Dawn. Down $2.77 to $63.52. This card has been climbing, and now it's just kind of snapping back a little bit. The card itself, it's seeing maybe a little bit less play than it was at one point when it comes to Vintage Legacy Modern. It's still out there, though. Sometimes it's out of sideboards now. But I think the big question with this card is, will this be in Masters 25? I kind of feel like the answer almost has to be yes, because all the other big cards that we were clamoring to be reprinted for like ever feel like they finally got a reprint somewhere. Even Noble Hierarch showed up as the RPTQ promo, right? Like, all those cards that you were just scratching your head forever, like, where are they, have shown up now, except this one. This has to be a Masters 25, right? Alright, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week. And like I alluded to at the beginning of the video, a lot of the cards you're going to see here are either in the Temur Breach deck or the As Foretold Living End deck. Number 5, Through the Breach, up $1.69 to $39.87, and of course this is a key component to the, you guessed it, Temur Breach deck. Number 4, Cavern of Souls. This is the Modern Masters 2017 version, up $2.26 to $61.50 this week. So we saw the other version go down, this one's going up this week. It's maybe a tad unusual because they've been pretty much in lockstep every week. This could probably snap back next week, but again, just goes to show you how great and really universally played this card is at this point. It's all over the place. Yes, the Humans deck I mentioned earlier, but so many other great decks too. Number 3, Living End, up $2.90 to $19.25. Of course, the key component to As Foretold Living End. Number 2, Emrakul, the Eons Torn, up $3.35 to $44.38. And of course, this is the Rise of the Eldrazi version. And this card being part of Temur Breach is the reason it's going up this week, although it's part of some other decks too, like Sneak and Show and Legacy, for example. And number 1, Celestial Colonnade has a nice increase this week of $5.07 to $48.49. This card has been gradually going up over the weeks and months, and a lot of the control builds in Modern have been pretty popular recently, Azorius as well as Jeskai control decks, and of course they run this card. This card desperately needs a reprint. Does it show up in Masters 25? Maybe, maybe not. If it doesn't, this thing is going to continue to climb. Watch out for this one because there's really no stopping it until it finally does get a reprint. Alright, let's move on to the world of Legacy. And for the most part, things have been quiet, but there are a couple interesting cards to look at this week. We'll start off with the top 5 cards that have lost value. Number 5, Nicol Bolas from Legends, down $10 to $119.99. Now this card has been going up pretty aggressively recently, and I do want to point out this is not a reserve list card. It has been reprinted. You can find places where it's cheaper, like Chronicles, for example. But that original copy, as well as really most of those original Gold Legends, have been hot recently. This one snaps back a little bit this week. Number 4 is Moat, down $11 to $563.99. Not really much of a change for Moat. Number 3, another Void, another card that didn't really move that much, down $14.21 to $424.44. Number 2, City of Brass, down $23.53 to $171.18 from Arabian Nights. This card was the target of a buyout. It has been going down gradually since copies have been reintroduced to the market, and this will probably go down a little bit more. Another card that is not on the reserve list has been reprinted. And number 1 this week is Tundra from Unlimited, down 83.40 to 285. All right, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week. Number 5 is Badlands from Unlimited, up 54.99 to 299.94. Number 4 is Gauntlet of Might from Unlimited, up 62.26 to 345.48. This card was sitting around the $200 mark for a long time. It's a good 93-94 format card, and that format has gotten a little more attention recently due to some pros playing it casually. So yeah, some of these cards you might want to watch. This does feel like it has had some significant growth, although I would imagine there'll be some snapback after this increase. Number 3, Jazam Jin, up 69.98 this week to 899.98. This card just doesn't stop. I looked at this yesterday when I was preparing everything for this video, and the card was actually down a little bit. It was down about $75 to around $800. And since then, in less than 24 hours, it actually ended up going up to close to $900. So to me, this card has been crazy. And is it a buyout? Is it just people noticing the card? Is it influence from 93-94 format? Maybe all of the above. I think 93-94 is going to play a role. I do think that there are some people trying to maybe do a quote-unquote buyout, but it doesn't feel like an orchestrated technical buyout where they're buying things up quickly on credit and trying to sell them back quickly. It feels a little more drawn out. And I also think there's going to be some people out there that just see this thing going up from 500 to 600 to 700 to 800. They're trying to jump on before it falls out of their range that they can afford it. So they're trying to catch it maybe before it gets to $1,000 or something, which is leading to more purchases whenever this card does come up at a lower price. So I think that's what's happening, and it's so iconic. I mean, this is one of those cards. It's Arabian Nights, reserve list, harder and harder to find, iconic piece of artwork, one of the most powerful creatures of its day. By today's standard, it's probably not the best, but it would be very good by today's standards even. So yeah, very interesting card. We'll have to continue to watch this one. Number 2, Diamond Valley, up $78.40 to $490. This card was the target of a buyout. It's been going down ever since, but it has kind of snapped back a little bit this week. We'll have to keep an eye on this one if this is trying to find its new price point, or else it's maybe just a bump in the road on the way down. And number 1, Gwendolyn de Courcey, up $84.69 to $170. I mentioned this card last week in our notable section, and I saw it starting to go up a little bit. I thought maybe this was the beginning of a buyout, and it looks like that's what it was. Definitely another buyout on this card. So yeah, I do think this will snap back because whoever bought these out will try to sell them back relatively quickly as usual. But it's not going to go back down to where it was, and these gold legends, especially the reserve list cards, just incredibly hot right now. All right, let's talk about some notable cards of the week. And a couple, before we get into our big Bazaar of Baghdad spike, a couple other ones I wanted to mention. Academy Rector, of $15.61 to $48.99. This is from Urza's Destiny. It is a reserve list card. It has a tutor effect tied into it. Every once in a while you see this in Legacy, but it's an interesting card. Maybe the beginning of a buyout. I guess we'll wait and see. Next is Angus Mackenzie, up $16.65 to $162.37. I always like to point out when this card goes up. Fantastic commander card, another reserve list gold legend. Fantastic for pillow fort. So there is a market for this card. This could be maybe the beginning of more movement. And finally, Bazaar of Baghdad, up $1,302.50 to $2,225. What? Right? So how does this happen? Well, let me tell you the story. First off, let me explain the card. Arabian Nights, reserve list card. Highly undervalued, actually, because it's banned in Legacy, but it's a great vintage card for Dredge, and it's also a great cube casual card in general. And you could definitely say highly undervalued, considering all we've been seeing with Arabian Nights recently. Now, probably most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Rudy from Alpha Investments. He did a video recently. Really, I believe his point was to illustrate how volatile and dangerous collectible markets, especially the Magic market, can be. And in this video, it's just a really short video, and he simply said, I'm going to do something as kind of an experiment. I'm going to do one of 3 things. I'm not going to tell you which one, but within the next 24 hours, he put this video out a little over a day ago. I'm either going to buy up all the Bazaar of Baghdad's that are listed at $1,000 or less. So basically do a buyout. Or I'm going to do nothing, just put out this video and just see what happens. Or the third option is I've already bought these cards. Like I've been buying them all along, purchasing them, and I'm going to make this video, tell you that I bought them out, and then see the market, react to it, and then I'm going to sell them. Right? So just by making that video, created this. And I really believe this illustrates the point I've been trying to make for a long time on this channel when it comes to buying Magic cards or sealed product or whatever. This is not something you want to invest your future in, no matter what. Even if you think it's safe, like reserve list cards or something like that, where someone can make a 2-minute video and upset the market to this level, that goes to show you just how dangerous, volatile, and stable this market can be. So if you're really thinking about planning for your future, you put your money in things like stocks, bonds, Roth IRAs, 401k. You don't put it into Magic cards, right? And that's true of any collectible. Now, if you're doing it for fun, if this is your hobby and you like to try to buy up some cards and maybe turn them around to buy more cards or something like that, and that's a hobby and it's fun for you, well, that's cool. That's great. More power to you. But if it's not about the fun factor and you really think you're trying to support yourself in the future for your retirement or something, I would not go this route. And we've seen this again and again with the comic book industry, with the sports card industry. Collectible markets are highly, highly volatile and dangerous because there's no way for them to be regulated. Now, the government can regulate its financial market. They can increase or lower interest rates. They can print more currency if they feel the need to. They can crack down on counterfeiting. These are things that Hasbro can't do or doesn't have the resources or doesn't want to do because they're not going to spend the money. They're trying to make money for the shareholders. So they're not going to form like an agency to take out counterfeiters. That's just not what's going to happen. So you have all this volatility. If someone can make a 2-minute video and spike a card $1,300, you know that you're in for a wild ride over the next few years with these market prices. So if the game ever loses its demand, if interest wanes, that's going to hurt the market quite a bit. A lot of this inflation could be false inflation. And if that's the case, if the cards are costing as much as they're costing because a handful of people are holding on to all of them, that's going to lead to a big bust down the road. Even that could even be sealed product, for example. And finally, counterfeiting could really put a big damper on this hobby down the line. If you can't tell the difference between a counterfeit card and a real card, and they're getting harder and harder to tell, then confidence goes down. So these type of things in this video he did really illustrate how dangerous this can be. So my advice to all of you, truly, if you do this for fun, cool. If you do this to try to get cards to play with, cool. That's really where I target these videos for, honestly. And you probably noticed that as I talk through these cards, usually I'm more talking along the lines of, hey, if you didn't pick this up for your commander deck yet, you might want to pick it up now because it's at a good price point, or don't pick it up now because it's going to come down. I'm not talking about buying cards in bulk or anything like that. I just think it's too dangerous, quite honestly. And especially if it's not reserve list, especially if it's not sealed product, right? If it's like modern era Magic, definitely stay clear of it because it can all be reprinted. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, first off, I do want to say I like to keep things positive, as you're probably aware. So I don't want to see any Rudy hate in the comments. Hashtag no Rudy hate. I mean, if nothing else, I think he did a good job of illustrating a very important point, even if it did manipulate the market to an incredible rate. But anyway, at least it was only on one card. But with that being said, I guess that's the market watch for this week. I'm going to go get some rest and get over this flu. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.